I'm not the sort of cacti and succulent collector who likes to buy fully grown plants from a garden centre. No, most of what you can see behind me has been grown from seed. I like to witness the full narrative of these plants' lives from their first germination through to what might be their untimely death. However, yesterday I had the very good fortune of adopting 15 incredible caudiciform succulents from a woman who felt she just couldn't look after them anymore. Plants that have already lived many years and had long and storied narratives, and in many instances have the battle scars to show for it. Plants like this amazing Phocea edulis here. Now, today I'm going to be introducing you to some of these plants, many of which are quite new to me as well. Plants that I have no experience with growing. We're going to tidy them up, clear them of any pests, and get them ready to introduce to my broader collection so that these plants can continue to grow and their narratives can continue on for many years to come. So, strap yourselves in and let's get stuck in cleaning up this incredible adoption plant haul. So the plan today is this. We're going to dig up all of these plants out of their pots, give them a once over for any pests, and maybe give them a bit of a tidy up before putting them in some fresh soil, maybe a new pot. We'll see how we go. Now, because I have no idea what we're dealing with, I've got a few tools of the trade ready. In case we find pests, horticultural soap, this stuff is really good for mites in particular, but really how it works, it just smothers things, drowns insects, whatever. So great for use around the garden, very safe as well. If there's anything a bit more tough, we've got isopropyl alcohol, also great, deals with mealybugs really well, and I know at least one of these plants has got mealybugs after giving it a once over, so that'll come in handy. Now, for trimming plants, secateurs, pretty standard garden stuff. Any finer trimming we need to do, I've got the fine scissors. And then getting rid of any soil off the roots, we've got trusty old toothbrush, which I know we've seen before. I've also got ready a big batch of garden soil. Now, using my mineral mix combined with a bit of organic material, most of these plants are growing in more organic rich soil than I'm used to growing them in. They're also in terracotta, which I very rarely use. So I don't want to shift things too much for them. I don't want to stress them out. They've already moved their location, so let's not freak them out too much by changing things too heavily in one go. As they get a bit older and a bit more used to my conditions, I might go a little bit harder with, how I treat them. So let's get stuck in. I'm going to get my first plant, rip it out of its pot and see what we're dealing with. So, first plant. This is called Syningia ilariae. At least that's what the tag tells me. I've never grown Syningias before, so tag might be wrong. Be easy to tell when it flowers. This is a relative of African violets. They come from South America, and as you can see, they grow from this fantastic bulbous Caudex. Soft furry leaves, and I believe in the springtime they'll get quite spectacular flowers. Let me get this out of its pot. Might give it a nice new fancy pot to go with it. Let's see what we find, hey? Doesn't want to come out. Now, it took a little bit of work, but managed to dislodge it from its pot. However, this soil is just absolutely packed in. So this is going to take a bit of work with the toothbrush to clear a lot of this old stuff out so I can check the roots for pests. Bear with me and we'll see how it looks in a minute. Took a bit of grunt work, but finally got those roots free. You can see just how organic rich that soil was, which I'm sure these plants like, so that's why I've upped the organics in my usual mix, which I'll be using today. Gonna pot it in this little pot here, which I think will look quite smart. Let's put it in there and see how the finished product looks. Would you look at that? What an absolute beauty. thing I love about this plant is you can see there's this kind of scar on this side. Not quite sure what happened to it here, but looks like the Caudex has kind of had some kind of wound, maybe a bit of rot that it's recovered from. Perfectly healthy now, but shows that incredible story behind this plant. So that's Sinningia Ilariae, if the tag is to be believed. Find out when it flowers. Fantastic start. Let's keep going. The next plant here, a little bit obscured by that pot, I believe is a dormant Pseudobombax ellipticum, which is actually quite an impressive tree, but they grow this fat caudiciform base, and if you prune them hard, you can kind of build that up without it turning to a tree. This is a plant that I actually do have a little bit of experience with. You can see this is a seedling, unpruned at this point. I might in the springtime give it a bit of a chop to encourage that fattening up. So Pseudobombax ellipticum, I'm going to get this out of its pot. I'll also tidy up some of these pruned off tips, give it a bit more of an aesthetic appearance. Let's get into it, get this soil off, see how easy this one is. Well, that wasn't so bad. Bit of a shake and out we go. Now I'll just get the rest of it off with the old toothbrush. Beautiful. So, again, pest free, pretty happy. Take the secateurs. It's just a few little knobbly bits that I want to get rid of here. Just keeping it nice and close. The Caudex, there's one of them. Take off this other little tiny one here, and then the fat one in the middle. You can see it's all kind of dead wood under there anyway, so no loss. Might trim that a bit closer. Okay. So there we go. That's our plant. We're going to pot it up. I put this one in plastic, I think. It's going to keep growing larger, unlike that Sinningia, so no need to put it in its forever home just yet. So I'll get a plastic pot, chuck this in, and we'll go through using that same beautiful soil mix for this guy. Plastic pot, here we go. And there we have it. Pseudobombax ellipticum trimmed up, ready to go, ready to turn into a truly fantastic fat little guy when it starts growing again in the springtime. Now, talk about plants with a bit of character. Get a load of this Adenium obesum. From the front you just think, oh, it's having a bit of a lie down, but when we turn it around, you can see there's this cavity in the base here which makes it almost hollow. The lady who gave me this told me it had been quite badly sunburned a few seasons ago, and I guess just to make it a bit uglier at the moment, it's in its dormant period. There's a few stems that need trimming. I'll be really interested to see how this looks when I get it out of its pot, because this is a plant that's got character in spades. Now, Adenium obesums, these are plants that grow all up Africa, from South Africa up to kind of near the Arabian Peninsula. Get beautiful flowers. They've been bred to have quite incredible coloured flowers as well. So this is going to be an interesting one if we can revitalise it. Oh. Get a load of that. Now, it's not soft to the touch, there's no rot there. It's perfectly fine. I can see maybe a bit of mealybug. Is that a bit of mealybug? Could be. I'll give it a spray anyway, just to make sure, and I'll tidy up that cavity a little bit. And then I'll put it down in a pot. I'll keep it lying down because it's got that beautiful shape. All right. Now, Adenium obesum are related to your pachypodiums and other things like frangipanis. That's why they've got those incredible flowers. Makes them very collectible. A lot of breeders will invest a lot of time and effort into growing ever more remarkable flowers on these plants. Can't see any evidence of any other pests, but I'll just give it a precautionary spray anyway. Take the old isopropyl alcohol and I'm just going to nuke that cavity because there's a lot of flaky dead skin. Pests could be hiding inside. In fact, I'll get my little tweezer scissors, try and clear out some of that flaky stuff. Have a look at this. Okay, here we go. Come on. A little bit on the roots as well, doesn't hurt the plant. Looking fantastic. Now, figure out a way to display this, showing off all that character. So, new pot, raised the plant up as well as I can to feature that cool cavity. Last thing I need to do is just give some of these branches a trim. A few have died back over the winter time, so give it a tidy up and she'll be ready to go. Get the old secateurs out. It'll also induce a bit of branching on the plant as well, but for the most part, just doing it for plant health. And there we have it. Another fantastic specimen plant with quite the story to tell. Now we've got two little guys. This one is Euphorbia Dacarii, and this, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a dormant Euphorbia Vigerii. Both of them from Madagascar, and as you can see, fairly small root systems, so I'm going to pot these up in small plastic pots, help them grow bigger and happier in the long run. And there we have it. Two more plants ready to go into quarantine with the rest of this incredible collection. These guys will get much bigger with a bit of time. This little fella here is Tylocodon bulcosianus, winter growing succulent from South Africa. Stays pretty small. Now, as you can see, this plant's got very few roots, so I think it's going to appreciate going into a plastic pot with a gritty soil and then watering it up while it's in its growing season. That's how it looks now. It's just got one dead stem. I'm going to give a trim. In fact, use the fine scissors on this one. There we go. To top it off, I found a few little seedlings of some member of the Izoaceae family growing in this pot. So I'm going to put them in there, give it that authentic kind of wilderness feel. Dig a little hole, pop the roots in, and now we've got a winter growing multi-species pot from South Africa, probably. It's Tylocodon bulcosianus. Beauty. This next plant I'm very excited to share with you. It's a Pachypodium. Now, I'm assuming this is a Pachypodium succulentum. I might be wrong, it could be Pachypodium bispinosum. I'm not really down on the minutiae, and the easiest way to identify between the two is to look at their flowers. But the coolest thing about this plant is they grow these massive underground cordiciform roots. And so I'm really interested to dig this spiny little guy up, see if what's going on under the soil line, maybe even raise it up a little bit to show off what's going on. So I'm going to get this out of its pot now. I won't bore you with watching. We'll come back and see how this monstrous little thing is growing, hey? Get a load of this. Wow! Have a look at the size of that root. Absolute beast. Now, in habitat, this is an impressive water storage organ. It allows this plant to survive really prolonged periods of drought. In cultivation, it's a stunning feature. Now, you can see the fat root is kind of coiling around. What I imagine has happened here is multiple times it's hit the bottom of a pot and it's gone spiraling around looking for more depth. Hasn't found it, started to go horizontal until eventually it's been repotted and it's been able to continue down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy up some of these roots towards the top here, trim them away, repot this with a view to presenting a whole lot more of that amazing Caudex above the ground. So let's get hacking, hey? Whoa. That'll probably do it for now. Find a decent pot for this, something nice and deep. Can do a bit of growing into. See how we go. And there you go. Finished. What an absolute specimen plant that is. Now, ordinarily, this is a plant that'd be deserving of its own special pot, but don't have anything that quite befits how good this looks. So I'll keep an eye out for it, keep it in plastic in the time being. Gonna need to acclimatise this new exposed Caudex very gradually to the sun. Don't want it to burn. So that'll be the next project for this. But get a look at that. What an amazing plant. And the things you can find under the soil when you just go digging. Now, while we're on the topic of Pachypodiums, look at this monster. This is a dormant, what I assume, Pachypodium saundersii, with an absolute beast of a Caudex in the middle. Pretty spiky too. So I'm going to need to be careful as I get this guy out of its pot. And we talk about plants with character. Look at the gnarled, chewed up, fantastic form. This is a plant that's had a life and a half, and I'm looking forward to letting it continue to thrive. So get it out of its pot, have a look, find a new home for it. So I've taken off the soil, revealed even more outstanding character than I could have ever hoped for. You can see here a little cavity, completely hard, fully healed up. Clearly had a case of rot or something that it's healed from, just showing how resilient these amazing plants can be. Now, brilliantly, there's no sign of pests anywhere. And again, this is a plant really deserving of its own feature. But I don't have a pot for it right now, so I'll give it a temporary plastic pot. I am going to raise it up a little bit to show off a few more of those amazing characteristics. And then in time, when I do find the perfect pot for this guy, it's going to get a new home. I love it. What an amazing plant this is. Absolutely stunning. And come the springtime, it's going to fully leaf out too. Can't wait. Now there we go. Pachypodium saundersii, I think, looking absolutely magnificent, with a nice little feature hole as an added bonus. Next up, two members of the Isoaceae family, the ice plant family, which most people would know for plants like lithops and conophytum. But as you can see, these two plants look nothing like a lithops or a conophytum. We have Trichodiadema bulbosum from South Africa. This is Delosperma bossaranium from Madagascar. And both of these plants, as you can see, are grown for their impressive roots, which over time can be raised above the soil line as a feature. I'm not going to be doing that today because I think these roots could in time be even more impressive than this. So I'm going to pot them up in some deep pots, let them do their thing, and maybe in a few years see how they're progressing. Interesting side note about Delosperma bossaranium, which I imagine the lady who gave this to me wasn't aware of. The leaves can be removed, fermented, and used as a psychoactive drug. The more you know, hey? Anyway, let's pot them up. So there you go. Two plants in their new pots, looking pretty spiffy. The Trichodiadema, I could, if I wanted to, give it a real trim back, tidy up those leaves and those stems a little bit, but for now I'm going to let it grow as nature intended, and maybe in a few years when I dig it up and check out the roots, I'll hack it back then. But for now, two more plants to put with the others in quarantine. Now it might be a little bit hard to see this one, but this is called Drimia intricata, so named. The very delicate and intricate stems that emerge out of a swollen onion-like bulb that sits just poking out of the soil line. Interesting plant, very widespread across Africa, both summer and winter growing forms. I'm going to assume that this is the more common summer growing form, which just hasn't entered dormancy. I'll get it out of its pot, we'll check it out, and I'll probably give it a little bit more depth to grow into. So that probably gives you a better indication of how this plant grows. You can see that onion-like bulb, which in time will divide, a form of asexual reproduction. Now, I've never grown this plant before, but I'm led to believe they're also incredibly self-fertile. You can see the remnants of what I suspect are seed pods all over this plant. So I'm sure there's going to be many more Drimia intricatas to come. Put this in its pot now, put it with the rest of the collection. Can't wait. There we go. Now, this plant was growing partially covered by the soil, and I've raised it up a little bit. In nature, the bulb itself, I'm told, grows above ground, unlike most bulbs. One thing to be wary of though, anytime we expose any part of a plant's tissue to the sun that's been covered before, it's a recipe for sunburn. So this is going to be spending some time in some bright shade well before it's exposed to any direct sunlight. So that's Drimia intricata for you. Not looking forward to the next one, I'm telling you what. I grow a lot of cacti, but this thing here admittedly is a blind spot for me. This, I suspect, but I can't confirm, is a species of Pereschia, which is quite the evolutionary throwback to cacti. It's got leaves. How many cacti do you know have got leaves? Not many of them. Well, this one sure does. And it's also a fantastic answer to a very obscure trivia question. How often have you heard the saying, all cacti are succulents, but not all succulents are cacti? Well, this disproves the myth, because this indeed is a cactus from the Cactaceae family, but it's not a succulent. And if you get a close look at it, it's the most hideously spined little bastard you'll ever see in your life. Hence, why for the first time today, I've cracked out a glove. I'm going to do my best now to try and get this thing out of its pot and have a look at it. Wish me luck, and hope I don't come back with spines sticking out of every bit of bare flesh on my body. Here we go. You know what? I give up. Now, you might be wondering how on earth it came to be. So there's a cactus that isn't succulent. Well, I said before, this is an evolutionary throwback. What that means is that when cacti evolved, well, one of the first things they evolved were these incredible defensive spines. Their succulent nature came later. So this is one of those early evolutionary cacti. Got incredible flowers. However, also interestingly, it's very, very good at propagating itself. It grows readily from cutting, and I'm led to believe that it fruits quite willingly, which has resulted in this being regarded as something of a weedy species in New South Wales where I'm at. Even so, I'm going to keep a close eye on it. I'll make sure that if it does set fruit, none of those fruits really get a chance to take hold. I'm not going to get all the soil off this. Looks pretty good to me. No immediate signs of any bugs. The plant's relatively healthy. So what we're going to do now, just going to bung this in a pot, put it aside, keep an eye on it for a while. Save me the hassle. So here we go. So there we go. Pereschia, maybe aculeata, I don't know. Time will tell when it flowers, maybe. I don't even know, maybe there's hybrids of these things. But in a new pot, looking grand, waiting for the springtime, when it's no doubt going to put out heaps of new growth and plenty of new leaves. Now we move on, and this next plant's got a similar kind of look to it. Woody trunk, non-succulent leaves, and some pretty hectic thorns growing along the entire length of the plant. This, however, is not a cactus. Wasn't really sure what it was when I got it, but I did a bit of research. Turns out to be from a genera of plants that I've never grown before, the Fuchsiera. This is Fuchsiera splendens, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, in the comments. Commonly known as the ocotillo, native to the United States. Pretty magnificent landscaping plant, I'm told. Grows into this quite magnificent, almost tentacled looking monster of a plant. Very hardy, and I believe it goes dormant during drought time. It's had plenty of rain lately, hence the leaves, but typically summer growing plant. This one, if we look closely, is infested with scale. Now I don't want scale getting into the rest of my collection, so I'm going to be treating this one quite extensively after I get it out of its pot. So let's do that, then I'll show you how we're going to get rid of the bugs. Good news is, no nasties under the soil line, and from a cursory inspection of the plant, most of the outbreak seems to be at the tips in the new growth. You can even see some of them have been stripped right back and have died. So as far as I'm concerned, the easiest solution at this point is going to be these. We'll just cut the infestations off. We'll encourage branching in time anyway. And then I'm going to give it a bit of a soak in some chemicals, just to make sure when all that's done, staying away from everything, staying away from all these plants, all the new plants that are in quarantine, until I'm absolutely certain that there's no scale. So here we go, let's hack some of this plant to bits. As far as I can see, nothing left. You never know though, there might be some eggs or something. Don't often deal with scales, so see how we go. I'm just going to coat it in this, smother everything, they come back. I do have some harder chemicals, but I try to avoid them. My imidacloprid, it's like the nuclear stuff. It's the stuff that wipes out bee colonies, so try to avoid it unless absolutely necessary. But let's just give this a soak. Horticultural soap, magical stuff. Takes care, I reckon, of 99% of all the pests you encounter in a greenhouse. Alright, pot this up now. Like I said, I'm going to keep a very close eye on it. Make sure those scales don't come back. So there we go. Fusarium splendens. Looking quite splendid, if I do say so myself. Sorry, that was the dad joke coming out. Anyway, this is going into quarantine, well away from anything else. I'm just going to absolutely nuke it if I see any more of those scales, or anything else, I suppose. Wish me luck. Now we come into the final stretch, and here's a magnificent plant. This is called Bauerfein distica. Another one of those curious above ground growing bulbs from South Africa. These ones, however, have this incredible fan of leaves that emerge from the top. This must be quite an old specimen. It's an absolute beauty. Now the thing about this plant, and I know about this, is that at the very least it's been treated for mealybugs recently. I can still see some of their white waxy residue on the leaves. Haven't noticed any actual living mealybugs. We're going to be very wary. We're going to give it a real close inspection, get it out of its pot, probably give it a bit of a spray of alcohol just in case, and then it's going to go into quarantine next to the Fusarium. So here we go. Let's see how this guy looks when it gets out of its pot. Now, before we get to treating it, there's probably a few things I want to talk about. First of all, get a load of those roots. What an absolute beast. They're looking good, very fleshy, very healthy, so that's a good start. Second thing is, it's a really interesting and very poisonous plant. I'm led to believe this is another one of those plants that traditionally in South Africa, huntsmen have dipped their arrows into for the poison effects. So don't go dining on this one. And then lastly, not quite related to the Bauerfein, but growing in the same pot. Found these. No idea what they are. Seem to have a little almost disc-shaped bulb at the base and these non-succulent leaves. I'll pot them up, but if anyone's got any idea what's been growing with this plant, shoot me a comment. I'd love to know. Maybe it'll be more helpful if they flower one day. Anyway, roots are looking good. There's no pests on here, but I can see some of that waxy residue from the mealies that were at least once upon a time inhabiting this plant. So I'm just going to give it a once over with the alcohol, especially anywhere I can see that residue, just in case there's anything lurking underneath. But I suspect that this plant has been brought back to full health. Not seeing any evidence of mealybugs at this stage, so it's a good sign. Underside of the leaves as well. You don't want them to escape your attention. This is a plant, as you can imagine, has got plenty of crevices for little bugs to crawl into. They love dead, dry skins, like you can see on the bulb, and they love getting into the cracks between the leaves. So I'm just going to liberally spray in there. Won't hurt the plant at all. All right, time to pot this up. This will make another fantastic feature, and I'll see if I've got an appropriate pot to chuck it into. Although accommodating those roots might be a bit tricky. Here we go. And there we go. How good's that? An absolute feature plant. Now, a couple of other things worth knowing about Bauerfein distica. First of all, I'm led to believe there are both winter and summer growing versions. So if you own this plant, just respond to when it leaves out. Right now it's winter. This is in full leaf. So naturally, I'm going to keep watering it. Second thing worth noting is that they have stunning flowers. This isn't just an amazing plant for that massive bulb, but it's also going to put on an amazing floral display if kept correctly. Now, the bulb's going to keep growing. Each year these leaves will die off and they'll add to what we call these leaf scales, which are the sort of things you see around the bulb of an onion. So it's only going to get more and more impressive as time goes by. And I'm so excited that I get to watch this one continue to grow. It's been a huge day. We come now to the big boy, Phocea edulis. This member of the Apocynaceae family, like things like your pachypodiums, is massive caudiciform vining plant. You can see the vines all scrambling all over the place here. The thing that I'm most interested in here is getting a look at the roots, because just like that pachypodium that we looked at earlier, what's happening beneath the soil may well be the most interesting thing. So, going to get it out of its pot, reveal what lurks below, and then chuck it in some soil, and that'll be it for the day. Here we go. Let's just see if we can lift it straight out. Oh, it's coming. Here we go. Oh. There's a bit going on down there. Give this a bit of a clean up. Oh, look at these roots. Fantastic. Really interesting. Massive. Oh, it's not light, I'll tell you what. Once again, we can see at the base where these huge roots have hit the base of a pot. Just getting a bit of the loose soil off with the toothbrush now. Oh. And there you have it. What an absolute monster that is. I'm going to raise that up a little bit, not extensively, just to show off a bit of that girth. Take a look at that. Anyway, these are probably one of the most interesting and accessible of the caudiciform plants for beginners if you're interested. Very hard to kill. They grow massive. They get fantastic, huge root systems after not a huge amount of time. They're also the sorts of plants that you can find around the place with not too much difficulty. So anyway, let's get this potted up, see how we go, and that'll be that. Look at that. Now, this pot is far too shallow for this plant, and I do intend on repotting it soon enough, but sure shows off those roots. What I'm going to do now is just give it a bit of a tidy up, trim off some of the, what I would declare excess roots, a bit of the tangle of the vine, make it worthy of a show plant. Let's see how we go. Trusty secateurs, nothing better. We want to be careful of the milky white sap, which is toxic, not overly so, just something to be mindful of. So there we have it. Phocea edulis staged as if for show. And I'll be on the hunt for a much bigger pot to accommodate these absolutely beastly roots before they decide there's not enough space in this shallow dish. It's been a long, long day of repotting, checking for pests, pruning things back, talking to you guys. But in the end, this is the plant adoption plant haul. I'm so thankful and appreciative that I now have the opportunity to take care of all of these plants, hopefully for many, many more years to come, and without too many more battle scars. But every wound, every hole, every nick on a plant, they all tell a story. And really, what's the point of growing plants if not for those stories? So, I'm going to leave you today, at the end of this video, with just a few clips of the finished plants as they look now that they've been tidied up a little bit. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you've got any questions, by all means, shoot me a message in the comments or at Instagram. You can find me at bayou.brothers. If you want to subscribe, by all means. And if not, that's cool too. Anyway, until next time, happy growing and take a load of these amazing plants.